Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As promised, you are listening to Good Morning Blues Part 1, and I am thrilled to have long-time British blues icon, Mr. Long John Baldry on the phone. John, are you there?
Yes, good morning, Bob. It's great to be with you.
Well, it's certainly super from my point of view to have you on the phone here. Good Morning Blues has been running for 30 years, and the title of the program obviously says it all. And one of the tracks that we tend to open with once in a while is your own version of that Lead Belly song from your most recent album.
Oh, great. Oh, that's yeah, it was a labor of love, that, I must say, that album. Recorded mainly in my bedroom at home here. We just did it on hard disk drive computer, and I think the whole thing ended up costing like $3,000 to make. I mean, that's amazing, I mean, yeah, it is possible to. I mean, I think the artwork and the layout for the sleeve, I think that cost more than the actually what it cost us to make the album. So it shows you that, if you put your mind to it, you can make albums for a lot less than people waste on producing records.
Well, then that does confirm my belief that, considering you're also 6'7", that people really do get value for money.
Well, yes, I hope so. Yeah, and I was very pleased with the way the album turned out. People have asked me why I didn't do Goodnight Irene, and I said, well, the song has been done by so many people. Yes, I've included a few well-known ones on there, like the Rock Island Line and the Midnight Special, but there are a couple of other things that are maybe not quite so well-known on there. And all of the songs turn out very well. I especially like "We're in the Same Boat, Brother," with the delicious fiddle playing from Jesse Zubot. Are sure?
Well, certainly the fiddle and the accordion seem to be creeping back into the blues in the last 2 years. We've heard a lot of that mixed in. It's funny you should bring up the cost of artwork. I was telling our audience earlier on today how some of your older albums you had collaborations with a lot of the major blues artists of the 60s, and at one point I believe it was the cover of Everything Stops for Tea that was done by somebody quite well known, wasn't it?
That's right. Ronnie Wood did that painting, which unfortunately Billy Gaff, who was the Faces manager at that time, he pinched that the original painting of that, so I don't have it. But Ronnie always meant for me to have it for myself.
Well, Ron Wood, obviously, for those listening, of the Faces and latter the Rolling Stones.
Right, yeah.
All of which are names that you spent a lot of time with these people.
Oh gosh, yeah. Over the years, I'll say. I first met Ronnie when he was a member of a band called The Birds. They had to change their name, and it was a band Ronnie was playing guitar on, and Chris, the bass player with the band, Yes, was in that same band. I forgot what they changed their name to. But it's funny, Andrew Oldham's moved, he's relocated to Vancouver.
Has he really?
Yes, and we had a bit of a gathering at my place last night, and he was over. It was a sort of welcome to Vancouver type party, and we were reminiscing about the old days, because John Anderson, the lead singer from Yes, actually was our janitor and glass washer-upper in a club that some of us ran in Wardour Street before the Marquee ever got a license.
Well, that's quite bizarre. And speaking of the Marquee, is it true that the Stones actually opened for you?
Way back, yes. That's it.
62?
It was their first, 1962. It would have been. So the license for this place had been going for, possibly since, the late 1800s. And we opened it up and called it La Chasse. But part of the licensing requirements was that we had to form a board of directors, and there were several. Chris Barber was one, Harold Pendleton another, Simon White, who owned the Marquee Studios, Jack Barry and John G., who were managers of the Marquee, and myself. And another thing, part of this peculiar license, was that in our duties as board directors, we would have to spend at least one evening a week tending bar. So I would do this usually on a Thursday. And of course, people would line up to get in the place because I had no real knowledge of how to pour drinks. I was always over pouring the drinks.
I believe there's only one way to pour drinks, and that's usually vertically down the throat.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well, I was pouring the glass, far more than the measures contained, the optics or whatever.
Right.
Somehow I couldn't get the drift of it, and I was giving people far too much for their...
So that's why everyone had such a good time. Yeah. Well, one of the other things that I took a while to find was the R&B from the Marquee with Alexis Corner, which I believe you also contributed to.
Yes, I mean, there's several versions of that album have been put out over the years, of course, firstly in vinyl back in 1962.
Right.
And since the CD format has been with us, they keep adding tracks to it. So...
But that's actually a great thing because, in particular, one of the most requested songs here in Atlanta is Don't Play No Bougie Woogie, which, of course, is one that everybody here knows. And the album It Ain't Easy on Stony Plain has never been put on CD that I know of, but I do believe I heard the word that Warner Brothers are threatening seriously to put that together with Everything Stops for Tea, which would be 1971 and 72, and put them together.
That's correct, yeah, together with a lot of stuff that's never seen the light of day, because back in the days when we were making vinyl records, mainly to help radio out, one was limited to 18 minutes per side on albums, so then you could cut the grooves in a wider manner, thus ensuring that the record could be nice and loud for radio.
Right.
So, you'd always record more than was necessary, and of course it never, stuff piled up, never got used. And of course now with the CD format, I mean, you can get 89 minutes at least. Well, because there's a lot of stuff that was never heard before, like, for instance, I do a very nice version of Robert Johnson's song Love in Vain, with Elton John on piano and Caleb Quay on slide guitar.
Wow, Caleb Quay.
That's right. That was never seen or heard since, my recording it in 1971. So this will be showing up on this, together with a few other things, including my version of a Neil Young song, which is not exactly the blues, but it's kind of nice. It's me doing Only Love Can Break Your Heart.
Oh, great song. Yeah, great song. It's funny, one of the things that I picked up, a bootleg video in Europe last year, has a very rare performance of the Faces doing Love in Vain, which they never ever recorded. And I'm trying to get around at the time to dubbing it off the VHS tape and cleaning it up, because that would be interesting. Caleb Quay used to open for Humble Pie. With a name like Goodfoot or Sugarfoot. Hookfoot, that's it.
And he was a tremendous player. He was in the band Bluesology that also, of course, had Elton John on piano. In the final stages of that band in late 67, early 68.
Was there any material by Bluesology ever recorded? Or?
There was stuff that we recorded for a TV show in Norwich, which would be East Anglia TV, and sadly the tape, because they had, for sound quality's sake, they had recorded us, or the audio for all the show. It was an hour special or something, and we recorded all. our program that we were going to do for the TV, and then mime it for the television special.
That's quite funny.
Ensure first class sound, or as near to first class as you could get. And unfortunately, they lost that tape in some kind of fire at their building in Norwich, which is a great shame, because that would have been totally marvelous, because of course they had Elton on. He was Reg Dwight then.
Right, yeah.
But
as you mentioned Elton, I'm obviously going to have to ask you the question that floats around from time to time. Somebody Saved My Life Tonight. Was that written for you?
Yes, actually. In fact, in a soon-to-be aired Baldry TV documentary biography thing that's going to be coming out sometime in the next year, because Nick Orchard has still got to be doing interviews with Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck and people like that. And McCartney maybe, and I think Peter, Paul and Mary too, because I had a lot to do with them in the very early days. But both Elton and Rod have contributed their interviews, and Elton says in this thing, he said, if it hadn't been for John Baldry preventing my marriage from occurring at that time, he said, I doubt whether I'd be where I am today. So he said, Elton John was basically created by John Baldry.
No, it's great that obviously one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on the show was because of the impending tour. It looks like you're going to be all over Britain for around 10 weeks.
And I'm hoping to be doing some stuff in the States, the latter part of March, go through the springtime next year, because I have a number of musician friends who live in the States. Getting a whole band into the States these days can be a real problem with, bureaucracy at the border, etc.
Yes.
Those people have...
Well, plus the equipment and the rules and regulations,
right.
Yeah.
Whereas if me coming in as a person employing American musicians, it'll probably be easier for me to do that.
Right.
And I really would look forward to coming to Atlanta, because it's a place that has many fond memories. Back in the early 70s, I worked in Atlanta quite a lot for a man called Alex Cooley, who was the main promoter at that time.
And he still is.
Really?
And it's funny you should say that, because I was actually planning on trying to get together with him, because I've had a lot of inquiries that I should probably sit down and talk to him about.
Yeah, well, Alex was always a lot of fun to work with, and of course I did that at the Mar y Sol Festival in Puerto Rico with him, and quite a few other things in other cities, but Atlanta was my favorite.
Now you're going to have to be careful on this tour in the UK. If you're hanging out with Zoot Money, very unpredictable guy who might even still bite your nose off,
Yeah, well, I just hope he doesn't remove his pants in public.
We hope he doesn't remove anything at his age, but he is a wild man on the piano. And something else that was interesting, Ray Dorset of Mungo Jerry.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Well, I don't know. It's actually the tour is being promoted by Dave Kelly, who of course is
right.
Joanne Kelly's brother,
yeah.
and also works together with
Paul
Jones in the blues band. And
right.
they do a little. I think they do a little acoustic gig as well.
But his last album, Resting My Bones, was an acoustic, and that has a Georgia connection. Because I believe that is a line taken from Otis Redding's Dock of the Bay.
Okay.
Which is where he got that from, but I'm really scratching the back of my head for that one. Well, look, so what are you hoping to get out of the British tour? What's the number one thing you want to convey in 2003?
Well, I think, as always, to let people know that even after 47 years of treading the boards, I'm still doing it, because a lot of people, they think if they haven't seen you constantly for a while that you've retired or died or something. But no, I've never stopped. 47 years. I'll be turning 63 next birthday, but I feel, at least 20 years younger than that.
Well, I tell you, if you've seen Chris Farlow perform recently, he's a fraction older than you and absolutely belts it out. I mean, he's quite amazing. So I don't believe that the age thing is relevant at all.
Not so much anymore, no, because now you got to, Mick just turning 60 last week, Mick Jagger.
Right.
I didn't realize he was that old, because when I first met him, he told me he was 17. Why he would tell me he was 17, I don't know. If he wasn't, very, very odd, because I was definitely 21 at that time. So I've always assumed that Jagger was 4 years younger than me.
Well, I think what it was he could look in the mirror and determine that his face was going to age much quicker than the rest of him. And it did.
But, up until them announcing that it was his birthday, his 60th birthday, I'd always thought he was 4 years younger than me. So that was, unexpected. Because in fact, he's 2.5 years younger than me. So if he's out there, mind you, they do take it easy, the Stones. I mean, it's not like they're working every night. When they go out on tour, they probably do 2 or maybe 3 shows a week.
Well, we used to joke when they came through that last tour, I think, was called the Steel Wheels Tour. Yeah. Now it's going to be the Steel Wheelchairs Tour. What about yourself? What's the next album project now that we've had a good year or so of listening to the Lead Belly?
I'm not sure. A lot of people have suggested to me that I do a Remembering Big Bill Broomsey album, because of course he was my very first ever influence.
Right.
Back in 1953 was the first time I heard Bill. I'm not sure whether that's so wise to be churning out tribute albums or remembrance albums. I'm not quite sure, but I'll certainly take stock of that and bear it in mind. What these various people have suggested. I was going to do a sort of jazz album sort of thing of standards, but Rod's kind of put me to the post on that a bit, I'm sure if I came out with such an album now, people would say, oh, he's trying to do a Rod Stewart.
Actually, there's been 2 or 3 people that have taken the same idea, but they've all done it quite differently, and I think everybody succeeded in their own way. I don't think for you to address some of these standards would come out remotely like anything that the very slick orchestral production that Rod did. I think your take on it would be so different that it wouldn't be such a bad idea, but obviously the selection of the songs is hugely important.
Yeah, yes indeed. But there is such a huge selection of songs that were written, say, between the 30s and say the 60s, the mid 60s, classic songs. Just so much stuff there. Yeah.
Well, of course, the other opportunity here that I don't believe I've ever seen is a compendium, a best of Long John Baldry. Other than the very old ones that were done, Golden Hour, which I think is now Castle Communications.
Yeah, I was a bit disappointed with the double CD that came out from them. The sleeve notes were a real hatchet job. I mean, the guy obviously hated me, whoever wrote it. They're the worst, rudest sleeve notes I've ever seen.
Really?
It just goes on and on and on, and they included everything they could find in their vaults. I mean, stuff that I cringe with embarrassment. Right. But then I think, hell's bells, everyone's made mistakes musically.
Yes, but you say you cringe at some of those songs, and yet they were hits. Yeah. It was just a different vein of music. That was all.
I suppose so. Yeah. They included some of my foreign versions of things.
Yes.
Me singing Mexico in Spanish.
I do recall that, but all I can say is Georgie Fame put out a set called The First 30 Years, and that's now 8 or 10 years old. So there's a starter.
Yeah.
Well, John, it's been absolutely fabulous. It's been a thrill to have you on the air talking to the Atlanta audience. And
it's a thrill for me because, as I say, Atlanta, holds many fond memories for me. And, may I take this opportunity to say hello again to those people who might remember me from the early 70s, and certainly Alex Cooley, if you're listening. Hello again.
Well, I will make a point of making that connection for you, just in case he doesn't get up as early as we think he should. But there you go. Well, John, fabulous again. Thanks for making the time, and we hope you have a tremendous tour, and everyone will keep an eye out on your projects forthcoming. And for everybody who is driving around or places where they're just able to listen, no need to make notes. You can, of course, visit the website. John, I think if you put it in as Long John or just John Baldry, it comes up, doesn't it?
www.longjohnbaldry.com, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if you would like to see the playlist of his material, which I used today, you can always sign on at ukbob.com, and it will give you also indication to the library where you can then pick the albums. John, if you'd like to stay on the line, I've got one more thing to check with you, but thanks so much for being part of Good Morning Blues.
Thank you again for the call, Bob. Yep.